Hi, and welcome to another ISOOSI chat, our regular Tuesday roundtable discussion of search, social, and all things marketing. I'm Carlos Fernandez, president of ISOOSI, and today we're going to be dissecting each of our views of SEO and wondering why SEO has such a bad reputation in other marketing circles, why so many people keep up with this line that SEO is dead, a line that keeps resurfacing year after year. Do people really think that, or is it just link bait, or do they actively want it to die for their own reasons? And joining us today, we've got a great panel. We have Jim Hedger, who's co-founder of Digital Always Media, coming to us from Toronto. We have Doc Sheldon from Intrinsic Value SEO. We have Ammon Johns, ISOOSI's search marketing consultant and resident ISOOSI chat expert on all things marketing, and Bill Slawski, Director of Search Marketing at GoFish Digital. So before we do anything else, just because I think we've got a few more viewers this week, can we all do a brief introduction? Jim, do you want to go first?
Where am I going, Carlos? What do you want?
Just a brief introduction.
Sure. I'm Jim Hedger. I'm a SEO who's been practicing since almost the dawn of SEO. I'm like SEO 1.5. Started practicing in 1998. I've been a writer and broadcaster in the space. I have a show on Webmaster Radio called Webcology, and I wrote this article last week in Jen Slage's new magazine, the SEM Post, that seems to have touched a nerve in the industry. That's me.
Yeah. Doc?
Hello everybody, Doc Sheldon here with Intrinsic Value SEO, also a co-owner of Top Shelf Copy, and I'm editor on The Meld, which is a UK-based pub we're desperately trying to get relaunched with a new design. And I had a hangout the other day with Jim and sat in on another one prior to that, talking about that article of his that seemed to have touched a nerve, as he said. Definitely resonated with me. Talked about some things that really need to be talked about, and myths was certainly a major topic there.
Cool. Bill?
Hello everyone, I'm the Director of Search Marketing for GoFish Digital. I started out as a webmaster in the mid-90s until a friend of mine, his sister sent us an email saying, hey, this company I'm selling computers for, Digital Equipment Corp, they started this website called Alta Vista. You might like it. And sent us a link to it. And it was pretty amazing. You could submit pages from a website URL by URL, and you could make changes to one that you just submit it again, and it would pick up all your changes almost instantly. But you can only do that one page at a time. Been working on a lot of pages since then. I never, ever, ever wake up asking myself, is SEO dead?
Cool. Ammon?
Well, I'm one of those people who's been in SEO a very long time. I guess that means that I'm immortal and cannot die. So since SEO is dead and we're all talking about it today, I thought this would be the perfect background for the Talking Dead.
Cool. So, do you want to kick it off? I mean, I know the article caused a. Do you want to give a brief outline? Have we posted a link to that article in the event page as well, guys? We can quickly do that. Do you want to?
I'll quickly fill in while somebody's posting it. One of the things is, as long as there has been an industry called SEO, ever since we came up with the name, I think literally the next week somebody wrote a post saying it was dead. And pretty much every week since, there has been somebody posting somewhere that SEO is dead. Forbes has had several goes at it, but certainly it's been in every major publication. Clicks had something last week. Every week somebody is saying SEO is dead. Usually, funny enough, they have a rival product, which is the new thing that's now alive. But yeah, apparently, you know, SEO dies a lot. what worries us is there an amount of wishful thinking to this? Why does it seem to be that A, people want to continually post that SEO is dead, and B, why does that seem to act as link bait that everyone will go and read it to see if it's true? You know, what is this reputation issue where either the audience or the writers seem to definitely want SEO to die?
I don't think, Ammon, that there's really any appreciable number of people that are expressing wishful thinking. I think it's nothing more than simple, tacky link bait.
Yeah.
It's a controversial topic. It attracts comments and links, and they're taking advantage of that. Kind of like upskirts, you know.
I totally agree, Doc. I mean, I do think there is a portion of people that wouldn't be sad to see it go, say, but you know, I don't think they're actively kind of posting these articles. You know, generally speaking, the people who are posting the articles are folks within the industry. That, you know, a lot of it is link bait, I think.
They make their living at it. I'm sure they're not wishing it was dead.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think there is a lot of link bait, and a lot of people who are, you know, just trying to chase viewers or readers. But I think there's another level to the story too that we're not touching on, and that's people who've been burned by bad SEO. They see, so you know, they spent their money, they didn't get the results they were promised, and they get a very bad feeling about the industry, the acronym itself. Social media comes along, it's a great chance for them to take a poke at the SEOs who ripped them off, the bad guys, the spammers. So, you know, I think many of these articles come from a place of not understanding the process, not understanding what it is we really do. And in many ways, or in some ways, I think that's our own damn fault, and it's something we have to repair.
I'm not sure that I agree with that. I don't think I've ever seen an article that wasn't written by somebody who claimed to either be an SEO or to work with SEOs. They're usually developers or social media. They're usually in some kind of marketing because they've almost always got something as an alternative that they, you know, promote as the new thing that works better than SEO ever did. Yeah, I agree with you. Most of them do not know what SEO is, but they think they do.
Yes, we agree on that, absolutely. They think they know. They try to describe it. They, you know, it's funny. It's the most recent article, the one that was in ClickZ last week. I think it was Carlos who noted that he was talking about technique that's 8 or 9 years old and that rightly should be dead. He was talking about link building, 5 or 6 years old. Google's actively trying to suppress, or at least trying to change the behavior of link acquisition. He wrote about a number of techniques that I wouldn't consider part of our daily practices today. They might be minor components, but they're not, you know, the holistic sum of SEO. But he wrote about it with his sense of authority.
Yeah, and it's something that we've discussed a few times on this show. There's a lot of things that were never good practice, but they worked. They were quick and dirty ways of getting results. And there seemed to be certain companies that thought that was SEO, particularly in link spamming. There were a lot of companies that used to do nothing but link spamming. And now that that doesn't work, they've either had to move into cleanup, or they're out there writing SEO is dead articles because their style of SEO really is dead, as dead as it can be.
Dead agreement. Absolute agreement with you there, Evan. But I don't think those are the only people writing these articles. You know, I know of people who would have bought our services. You know, we proposed to a number of different companies, but they got burned before. They got burned badly, and they don't trust the process any longer. In fact, they don't even trust anybody who puts SEO as an acronym in their title.
Really? I haven't seen that.
Well, I know a number of very active and people I consider to be good SEOs that are shying away from using SEO. They want to call themselves inbound marketers, digital marketers, web optimizers. You know, they invent a new title every other day to get SEO out of their name because of the the besmirching of the the reputation has just taken on a negative connotation with many people. And I don't even know that it's with a large percentage of the internet population. I think it's a relatively small portion, but it's too many. Those that have been burned, besides the damage it does to a business, to a family, they got to pull the kid out of private school. They can't buy the car this year after all. Things that happen that financially affect individuals and families. It gets real personal at that level. Yeah. And it becomes a very emotional issue. And when somebody promises you something within, supposed integrity, and then apparently deliberately falls short of that, or negligently falls short of that, you're going to take it personal.
I think that's you've kind of hit the nail on the head in terms of one of the root causes of this. Is like, from a marketing perspective, if you are a media buyer, you put in, you're doing work for one of your clients and you want to go and get them on TV. It's very black and white. All you need to do is find, analyze, get their demographics, go and research TV stations, and you do your analysis, but you can deliver a certain amount of broadcasts and a certain amount of time at a certain schedule. Radio, same thing. These are tangible kind of deliverables that clients can see and can hear. When you come to SEO, whether that's our fault for not, or not our fault, but the industry's fault for not explaining it well, when the client relationship starts, or what, however it is, it's just a different animal in terms of trying to explain what are the deliverables, what we can do for you. It really is, gone are the days where you have to do it. It's like the post that Mike Graham posted. The days of having to do a lot of the groundwork that you used to have to do in 2000, and before, to get your pages indexed. You don't have to do so much. You still have to check that they're right now, but a lot of that legwork has gone, and now it's making sure that you are fine tuning it. It's changed. And I think, sorry, go on.
Well, I was going to say, this is something I was trying to get at in the article. Our practices and the tasks that we do every day have changed. In many ways, we're upholding a standard of quality that the search engines are asking for, a standard of clarity. And it's our job to make sure that these, your navigation is straight, your CSS is readable, your content is excellent and topical, etc. It's up to us to uphold these standards for our clients and to push them to meet these standards. The search engines have automated a lot of the tasks that we did back in the early days, and that's great. That allows us to concentrate on what they're really looking for, which is quality.
Right. I mean, just going back to the analogy with the TV and the radio, because I do feel that this is where there's a disconnect between the SEO industry and other marketing things, and this is why sometimes we get a bad rap, or the industry gets a bad rap. When you're talking about SEO, you're dependent on there's another player in the mix. There's the search engines. If you've got a budget and you go to a TV station and you've got the budget to do it, you can get your product out. You can get it marketed. With a search engine, you're dependent on, you do all these things right, but then you're still dependent on the search engine. There's another player in the mix, and it's very, very different. And I'm not saying either side of it, but it's just difficult for a client who doesn't have a big budget to understand, and that's where this kind of getting burnt.
Yeah, I'm not going to agree with that, because I don't see any difference between this and TV and radio. What do you think any advertising agency out there says, oh right, well if you do this campaign on the radio for so many $1,000, you are going to make X percent of sales? Of course not.
Yeah, but
they have no idea.
We're talking about that's a difference between visibility and sales. I'm talking about, I mean, you can't even get the visibility.
Yeah, but exactly. Radio can't even tell you the visibility either. They can tell you how many, what the audience figures were supposedly for this show last week. They can't tell you how many people were actually listening rather than had it on.
Yeah.
They can't tell you whether this week there's something on another channel that's going to have everyone listening, or whether, they're all going to be at the pictures, or whether most people listen in their cars, and today it's a hot day and they're not going to be in their cars.
It's been over a decade since I've had to ask a client to send log files for the website. But we have this thing called analytics now, where people can actually look at their traffic and gauge it and get some idea of how many people are interacting with a website on different pages. With TV, we have the Nelson families. Who are they? Who are these Nelson people?
I do feel obliged to step in here and say, at Webmaster Radio, we can provide those numbers.
Right. You're on this thing called the World Wide Web, right?
But even that, it's going to be down to your ad what kind of sales you get. And yet, SEOs often find themselves trying to justify the ROI when other marketing doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
How does radio worry about justifying its ROI? It bloody doesn't. It's the radio. You can hear it.
I'm not agreeing or disagreeing with one side. What I'm saying is, to the client, when they hear a radio ad, they've heard it. They think other people are hearing it. When they see a TV ad, so it's that perception. I'm not saying it's one way or the other. I'm just saying it's a barrier. You know.
We know that when they see X company sucks, even though it gets 2 searches a month, and that was the CEO and the manager. They're aware of that and think everyone sees that too. So we know that they still understand that. But the difference is we're not as good at justifying ourselves. We worry that we have to track it right back to every individual sale. We feel like because the clients ask. Now, the chances are they ask the TV companies and they ask the radio advertising companies and they probably ask the newspapers. And those guys have been at it enough time to just say, well, look, here's the reach. We don't have those figures. It's going to be down to the creative you create. We, as SEOs, tend not to have that kind of, I'm tempted to say guts. We don't have the guts to just say, we don't know.
Well, or even...
It depends on what you do.
Well, I can't go into into an engagement with a client saying, I will give you this, because I don't know the outcome. Yeah. But once I've, a month, 2 months in, we have access to the same analytic reports they're looking at. In some cases, we have, access to other analytic reports that we're running. And now I have something I can justify, or I can rationalize against the service we provided. But I cannot go into the initial meeting saying, I will get you X, Y, and Z, because that would be a lie.
And this kind of comes back to all the hangout that we did on setting those KPIs in the first place.
Yeah.
I think what it boils down to, when you get right down to it, what has happened because of, for instance, the transition from print to tele and radio and now to online, there has been such a tremendous evolution in marketing and in presentation, and just as there's been on a smaller scale, there's been a lot of evolution within what we do, and we're not evolving as a whole.
What's a phone book?
Say again?
That's a good one by Tim now.
So the industry is evolving, but the practitioners, by and large, are not. And that's where Darwin's law will come into play. Natural selection, one would hope, at least. Unfortunately, they seem to be new species of crap hats popping up at a greater rate than they're becoming extinct.
I disagree with that, Doc. I'm sorry, I disagree. I think that we haven't seen the great extinction of the link builders, but it's coming. It's happening. It's actively happening. Many of them are dead, and they just don't know it.
Right.
And a few of them are writing articles like the one we just saw. I used to do SEO, and look, this is what it was, and it's dead. And yet, that was that kind that has gone extinct. But I think there is times when we get a very unfair reputation because some of these companies have dealt with SEO. Yeah, you took an SEO that sent you email spam. How good are they at SEO if they rely on email to get their clients?
You hired them from their email spam.
Exactly. It's a bit like saying, car valet services are rubbish because one day I stopped at the lights and some guy with a bucket came over and washed my windscreen and the water was dirty. Car valeting services are rubbish. That's the quality you're buying when you're getting somebody who's spamming you.
Well,
it's the equivalent of the guy with a bucket at the lights.
Okay, so we got to ask the question: who are these people buying dead-end SEO services? Who are they?
They're
Why
dead.
are they
Tomorrow's
doing it?
extinct companies.
They're, well, not necessarily extinct. I would say, in terms of the consumers that are buying those services from, the email spammers, I think many of them are, they're ignorant of what they need. They know that they need something, but they really don't have a good understanding. So they're somewhat ignorant, and that is not at all synonymous with stupid. Okay, that just means
No,
uninformed.
indeed.
Okay, and
It's
the
a
other thing
complicated
is that
subject.
many of them are desperate. They're flat desperate. Maybe they had a dream of an independent income and they see that it's not developing or it's dwindling. Maybe they already have an independent business and they've been living off of it, and now that income is dwindling. Maybe they got penalized because they've always done their own SEO, even though they don't know quite how to spell it. But for some reason or another, they're desperate. They see something that sounds like a good offer, like it has potential, and they don't know better. So they jump into it.
Here's my problem there.
Would you buy a used car by an email? No.
Here's my problem
You would
there.
be more conscientious. So why would you risk your business and your family's well-being on an email? That you have to ask yourself that question right before you slap yourself with a frying pan.
Well, as a practitioner, somebody who runs an agency, I have a problem here. I want to help these people. My heart goes out to the small business, the ma and pa, the ones who are really risking their vacation money, their kids' school money, whatever. My heart goes out to them. But I can't service them. I can't. It's not economically feasible for my agency to service those clients. So what do we do for them?
Okay, I got a theory
out there getting screwed. That's not cool.
Do you know what? We all do exactly this. There are people who can't afford a proper SEO agency or a proper SEO. There are. And what we tend to do about it, and I know you've done it for years, Jim, and you, Doc, and you, Bill, and me, and Carlos, we provide self-help resources. You're watching one of them right now.
Exactly.
This is what we can do for a budget of $50. For free, we can give you the hangouts and tell you what book to spend your $50 on. Because that's what you can do on that kind of budget. And if you're small, be realistic. Any company that's trying to offer you SEO for $50, you're getting the work of somebody who can't earn more than that with the skills they've got. If they can't earn $50 with their skills, which is the only possible explanation for them trying to sell it to you instead for that amount, if they can't earn $50, how are they going to help you? If somebody isn't charging a wage for what they do, they're no good at it. It's that simple.
In a nutshell, yeah.
And there are plenty of people who call themselves internet marketers who sell you programs, ebooks, PDFs, and so on, telling you that you can make loads of money just by stuffing envelopes, and it's an inflated business. Just blow it up, and all of a sudden it starts pumping out money. It doesn't happen. People want the magic pyramid scheme where they develop 3 levels down from them who just send them money all day long, and sometimes those people got to be told no.
I think a couple of us here, at least, are old enough to remember all the get-rich-quick schemes that used to be printed on the inside of every matchbook cover.
Mm-hmm.
And the traffic in those days that those telephone numbers received were phenomenal. It's just human nature. Something easy, something free, something new. They'll gobble it up.
I'm still waiting for my X-ray specs from the back of Captain Marvel.
Watch all the naked women walk down the street, right?
Let's just say that example Jim just threw out there. That these mom and pop shops have not got. I know you're saying that they need to have a budget, but just say they don't have much of a budget, and they get attracted by these fly-by-night offers that come in through their email. And Jim can't help them. I can't help them. Nobody can help them. But shouldn't a good search engine, is SEO even needed if Google and the search engines improve, to a point where, why is that actually needed? Right, yes, they have to try to market it and,
Yes, but they've still got to they've still got to take responsibility for certain decisions, and where a lot of small businesses go wrong is they start, trying to find those easy tips, those quick success things. They don't want a little bit of success. They want that secret that's going to launch them to the top. Well, guess who's written the article that sounds like that? Do you think this is the responsible, stable businessman, or do you think this is one of those get-rich-quick, fly-by-night snake oil salesman? Here's your secret to top rankings in Google across the board. You'll make thousands, and it's only going to cost you $20. That's not going to be an honest supplier.
Yeah. The one thing I would just throw out there, if you are a mom-and-pop shop, and a lot of our viewers are small business owners, is if you have a real limited budget, try to work with someone, and you go to a local chamber or go to a local business association. Try and work with someone you can sit down with and meet and shake hands with. That's not going to just go and disappear with your money. That's one of the first things
I'd like to add on top of what you just said, Carlos. Feel free to ask guys like us. I got no problem spending half an hour replying to emails. In fact, I owe part of my career to all the people who might ask those questions.
I know all of us here have responded to questions from site owners or newbie wannabe practitioners that have asked a relatively elemental level question on Google+, and they're asking not because they're flat saying, I don't know, I don't understand this. Can anybody shed a little wisdom? And we've all responded to those. There are so many forums available to you. Even there's groups on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Google+, even on Twitter. There are places you can go and you can get free information. Hey, Cricket.
Yeah, but I mean, the small business owners trying to run their business, Doc. I agree with you. There is definitely an element of people who are in, the traits of somebody that goes and buys those types of services is they're impatient. They want the results. They don't want to put the work in. And they're lazy. But, for a small business owner that's also trying to get their business off the ground, they've got so many other things to consider that, there's just so many, they're doing the books, they're wearing all these different hats. They're not bothered about, the URLs and title tags and things like that. So, and they don't have the time to spend trawling through forums. But, Yeah,
this is a bad enough SEO discussion already. Let's not bring hats into this as well.
Okay.
It's one of those things where, look, if you are a small business, there are tons of resources. We've got 36 hours of video you can go through. It's giving you tons of information. Over the years, I know Bill has written enough blogs to keep you busy reading for 6 months non-stop if you want. Jim, Doc, I know people can be busy at your places. But, it's not that there's a lack of information out there. There's a lot of free advice, and you can get a long way on that. The reason we do this is because it is the help for the mom and pop to get up to the stage where you can afford to hire a good SEO. The stuff we've given away for free will get you to the point where you can hire somebody like Doc, or somebody like Jim, or somebody like Bill, or even somebody like myself. It's there. You don't have to be that big. Not you, Carlos.
Business administration.
I'll do my 2-minute plug at the end.
On marketing and low-cost ways to market your business. That for anybody starting out in a business and trying to figure out how to get people coming through the door are worth spending the time reading, looking through. There's a SCORE mentor program where people who are retired will take their time, spend it with you, and listen to you, offer suggestions and ideas. There are plenty of opportunities like that don't rely upon somebody who's written an article saying, is SEO dead? Well, you should try social media. I will help you. Fill out the form below, send me money, and we're off.
Yeah. But one of the things, for those companies that don't have big budgets but have got some and really want to be sure they're doing it right, it may sound self-serving, but find yourself a consultant. Find somebody who will just in an hour give you an idea of what strategies you can go for, who can double-check what your plan is, and in an hour you can get months' worth of work of your time sorted out. That you can rely on it. you've shortcutted having to dig up all of the advice for yourself, but it's a balance.
Here's a question I have for the panel, and it's something that vexes me. It bothers me. How much responsibility do we, as the most unorganized collective of practitioners, how much responsibility do we bear for the evolution of the industry itself?
Mm-hmm.
Well, a lot. But I think most of us do a pretty good job. Unfortunately, the barriers to entry are not only low, they're non-existent. Yeah. You know, there are these offshore companies that can't write English that still think they can sell SEO, and unfortunately still seem to actually manage to do so. Yeah. Now, it's not that we haven't published. I've got articles on, you know, how to select a company. Has anyone here never written an article on how to select an SEO?
Nope.
Has anyone here never done a show, podcast, or anything else on, you know, what to avoid in SEO? Of course not. We've done our bit, but it's that thing, you can lead a horse to water. We can lead customers to good advice, but we can't make them take it.
Well, and
can you at least beat them around a bit?
And you have to remember too that, you know, the fact that you wrote an article doesn't mean that the guy that is getting ready to fall for some email scam read that article. You know, 15,000 people may have read it, and he may be the one that didn't. Mm-hmm. Or if he read so many things, he forgot about it.
No,
that's the other thing. There's so much conflicting opinion available on every single topic that within marketing and SEO. You know, I mean conflicting like 180 degrees out, conflicting, and everything in between. That it is confusing to somebody that doesn't understand the field. How in the world do I sort? You know, how do I tell between the gold and the gravel? You know, it's just
yeah.
extra.
Okay.
Well, and what you're getting at, Doc, is sort of knocks right on the nail head why it's impossible for any form of loose, voluntary, or professional standards organization to form in the industry. There's just too many ways to skin this cat.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think that everybody as an individual needs to take personal responsibility for their own actions.
Yes.
And how they interact directly with their customers and their clients, how they show off what it's like to work with somebody who's got honor, who's ethical, who tries to do the right thing all the time. So we maybe don't have control over every interaction with every potential client who needs SEO and every SEO. But that doesn't mean when we see an article that says, is SEO dead and is doing it to purely manipulate people.
The problem with that, though,
there are parts. I'm 100% in agreement with Bill that, you know, people have got to take responsibility for themselves. Look, I can be a fan of scat jazz, and I go to Google, and I decide I want to see some of these bands, so I go to image search and put in scat.
Oh boy, that's going to be a fun.
Oh boy, this is not going to go well. Is it Google's fault? Google have provided safe search, but they can't make you turn it on. But it's not Google's fault. You've got to take some responsibility. Look, this is new technology. If the internet is, you know, something that you're still coming to grips with, understand that go slow, go careful, and do that logic check. Make sure this makes sense to you. If it doesn't make sense to you, don't buy it. Don't do it. And if it goes wrong, you know what? Pick yourself up, learn your lesson, move on. Don't bet everything on the first offer you see.
Well, I absolutely agree with you, Eamon. Like, taking personal responsibility as a practitioner or as a customer, that's just good karma. Sometimes I wish I was karma in an alley with a baseball bat, because I get so mad at crap hat practitioners.
Yeah.
I mean, I totally agree. You gotta just worry about yourself and act professional, and it will, you know, it does rub off on the industry. But Bill, I think what you were saying about us all doing that, you know, we all do that, and we all make sure our staff and any associates do that. And you know, if people are not doing that, we try to call them out. But the problem is, it's like what Ammon said, that the bar is so low to entry that it's almost it gets diluted with the crap hat. And you know, I was in a meeting the other day and was trying to do talk a little bit about SEO. That I work for a consult for another agency in Philly, and it's, you know, the word SEO came up, and somebody just blurted out, "Oh, there's a plugin for that." But if people have got this mentality that there's a plugin to replace SEO, I mean, you know, so some of it is our own. You know, we can try and make better, but also we've got these other battling forces where just people take best practices and try to widgetize it. And you know, that happens in all industries, you know, a lot of industries. But we've also got to try to beware of that as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's two great quotes from Einstein that I always think really apply to SEO. One is, you know, when companies are saying, well, it sounded sort of right, it was a bit too technical for me. You know, Einstein used to say, if you can't explain something simply, you don't understand it yet. So if somebody can't explain it in your language, dollars, pounds, bottom line, sales, if somebody can't explain it in real terms to you, they don't understand it.
Yep.
And the other thing is, you know, he said, you should always try to make things as simple as possible, but no simpler. And there is a danger of oversimplifying some things. You know, make sure that when you're trying to explain it in bottom terms, you don't go, you know, really cutting out important details. You know, content is king is one of those classic cliches that actually has had all the juice squeezed out of it. It doesn't mean anything in its own. Content is king. What? Crap content is still king.
When I go to a forum, a place for people to share ideas in the industry, educate one another, and somebody includes a link to a post on the web where a guy describes him spending 20 hours finding an older web page and doing research to update it on purpose to create link bait, not to educate people, not to help them actually rank better on the web with their websites, but to earn him links. And he describes how he went about this process, and he's got 200 Google ranking factors that include things like paying attention to keyword density or using LSA keywords, or not using private WHOIS registration, because that's a sign to Google that you're a spammer. It's like, yeah. And all the comments I see at inbound.org are positive, and there are about 40 or 50 of them.
Great.
And everybody's voting this up.
Yeah, saying, but Bill, you can buy 5,000 votes for $10.
Right. I'm going to print this out and give it to my clients. How can you look at that and turn away from it and not write, this is crap? If you are using this stuff, you're idiots. You need to find another job. Because if you're using this stuff, you're hurting people. Your clients. You need to stop. You need to take an action like that. You can't just walk away from it.
I know this is going to be harsh, but to an extent, I don't do that anymore. When something is credible, you know, it actually is credible, and it needs challenging, I will challenge it, because it could fool somebody who's not wanting to fool themselves.
Right.
But when something is pretty obviously rubbish, do you know what? I'm not going to pick you up and save you from that, because even if I save you from this, I can't save you from the next thing. I can't save you from running your business by getting payday loans to pay your staff. You know, something down the road is still going to send you down the toilet, and that's my reputation on the line with it. I was associated with your company. You know, look what idiots this company was. I can't do that. But at some stage, you do have to take responsibility.
I think what Bill may be talking about, though, is when you see a post like that, and it's obviously rubbish, if you don't respond and say this is bullshit, then you're also allowing every other innocent reader out there who doesn't know any better to think that maybe it's true.
Yeah.
And then, worst case, if you do make a comment, Ammon Johns makes a comment on this post, and he simply says, "Well, what about if?" But you don't actually call the validity of the post into question. Now, the very fact that a name like Ammon Johns commented on it lends more credibility to it. So, if you're gonna see it, you gotta speak up.
Yeah.
If it's garbage, you gotta speak up. And if you speak up, you gotta tell the truth.
Yes.
Okay. Now, I want to take this conversation a step to the side. Sometimes people who are just learning about the industry, just learning a little bit about SEO or a little bit about being a webmaster, they find a source of content that is credible. That's very, very credible. And they see other people who are experiencing the industry. They go back to that same well over and over and over again. Two good contemporary examples would be Search Engine Watch and ClickZ. Now, I got a problem when magazines or publications that have spent years acquiring a great reputation, giving out good, solid information, and in fact being bedrock, foundational to the development of the industry, start publishing crap for one reason or another. In this case with ClickZ, the opinions expressed by Jim Hedger are not necessarily those of the people who are putting on this hangout, but they're Jim's.
Well, they might be.
In this case, they might be, but I'm not going to say that they are. In this case, because there's encounters, there are financial constraints have limited the pool of editors at both of those magazines to people who don't know the industry, who don't have the historic background, and who are now publishing stuff that could actually put people at risk. I got a problem with that. All the people who I've known over the years at ClickZ and Incisive, I'm sorry for calling you out, guys, but you got to get called out on this. People take you seriously.
And I've got a column. I do a column on Search Engine Watch, and I have limited familiarity with what has recently happened in the hierarchy there, and it's a shame because, Danny Goodwin is my editor. He's very conscientious. He's also knowledgeable, and he's always been very careful about not allowing anything up on that magazine that would be questionable. Okay.
Indeed. By the way, I got a lot of respect for Danny Goodwin. I want to get that in.
Yeah, and he doesn't have. He apparently doesn't have any more of the same level of control. I gather, and not because I've heard this from anybody, but I'm gathering that things are coming down now from on high and saying you will run this and you will push that. And it doesn't matter if you agree with it or not, thou shalt, And that is not journalism. It's just not the way it should be. When you get a certain amount of visibility, just like the same has been said of Hollywood actors, for Christ. When you get a certain amount of visibility, a certain amount of notoriety, a responsibility comes with that. You become childhood heroes. You become role models. There is a certain amount of responsibility. When you're a publication that, as you say, Jim, has been instrumental in the formation of our industry, with a large following like Search Engine Watch or Search Engine Land, or any community, you've got to belly up to the bar and shoulder your portion of the tab. There is some responsibility. Everything you say will be automatically painted with the extra credibility that your circulation offers.
Yeah. And like Ammon said a few moments ago, you just can't walk away from that. You can't. You put yourself there. You took on that responsibility. You can't set it aside and walk away.
There is a dividing line, though, and this comment from Steve is perfect for this. He says, "I've spent years in the forums trying to do my part to educate both SEOs and clients, and all I've seen is that it continues to get worse rather than better. And I know that Bill and I spent years at Create a Site, and while it might stop one, the thing is 3 newbies came along selling the same crap the next day. It continues to get worse rather than better. I view it as a combination of the older people getting burned out and the flood of people that know just enough. there is an element to this, and this is how I got to be that bit harsher. Whereas, you know, if something's credible, I will step in and try and save it. But if it's not credible, if this is something where you simply ought to have the common sense not to do it, I'm not going to save you, because I can't save you every day, and you're going to need saving every day. Yeah, some of this comes to the comment from Alex at SEO Wiser, who has just said, is this an issue of creating critical thinking in readers? And yes, yeah, a lot of it is. A lot of it is. And to an extent, I think if we go around trying to hold everybody's hand too much and be a nanny state of our own industry, I think we're actually maybe running the risk of, well, I don't have to be that critical, because if it's rubbish, somebody great will step in and say it's rubbish. They shouldn't be waiting for us.
Well, yeah, that's a phenomenon.
To say this is rubbish.
That's a phenomenon I have seen on forums, Ammon, where the membership will actually, in a certain aspect, a certain portion of a forum, will take the opinion and actually state it that, well, don't worry about it. You know, yeah, you'll hear all kinds of opinions and some of them are wrong, but one of the mods or one of the senior members will jump up and correct them. Okay, which, you know, you can't abdicate all your responsibility as a site owner or a small business owner to everybody else. You have to take on some of that responsibility yourself. If you made a stupid decision in your selection of a consultant, you own that, okay? And unfortunately, you'll pay the tab for it. But by the same token, we, as other consultants, also share some of that responsibility to call out those charlatans.
I do think the one thing where we SEOs really need to get better is in, just because your buddy posted something, do not auto plus it, do not auto like it, do not auto agree, read it, check you agree.
Yep.
I love Bill. Everyone knows I love Bill. The guy is great. I think he's a genius at what he does. But when he posts, I will still read those patents for myself, because I might spot something he missed, simply because my life experience is different.
Do your buddy a favor. Tell them they're wrong when they're wrong. It'll make them better.
Yeah.
Google comes out.
I actually appreciate.
Google comes out with the hummingbird patent, hummingbird update, and within hours, the only one who's got anything accurate is Danny Sullivan, who was fed the information by Google. He's got a frequently asked questions on Hummingbird, published the same day that Hummingbird came out, so nobody had a chance to answer those questions or to ask them. That is. Here's the frequently asked questions that we think people are going to ask frequently. Yeah, right. Maybe. But 10 or 15 people say, here's what Hummingbird is, and these are people who've made the crap up out of their heads based upon the experiences they have and the knowledge bases they have, and it's really got nothing to do with Hummingbird. Somebody wrote a Hummingbird article this weekend where they said it's the thing that gives you those answer boxes that show you processes, how to tie a shoe. First, untie shoe. Second, put shoe on foot. Third, tie shoe. Yeah, this is Hummingbird. No, it's not. And you know, this is Search Engine Land, which is a highly reputable, highly credible site. And the guy who wrote it is a guy I respect tremendously, who's written all kinds of beautiful things, who's interviewed search engineers and VPs of search engines and so on. And I think he's brilliant. And he's writing that it's these procedure one-box results. So I said, look, here's a blog post I wrote in 2007 that describes how these one-box results work and how they try to use lots of user data to figure out which database, repository of data they should include within a one-box. And it says we will potentially collect a lot of user data to figure out which ones people might want to see when they get certain questions. I said, yeah, this is not a rewriting of 90% of Google. This is not, we've rewritten the whole search engine. This is using something that's over a decade old that's like already does what you're suggesting is a new hummingbird feature. And I wrote that regardless of the fact that he's somebody I respect tremendously and believe most of the things that he writes, because I want to give him a chance to think about it and to say, yeah, maybe Bill's right on this. Maybe it is something else.
Well, I dare say, Bill, you call other practitioners with more confidence than most of us have a right to. You read patents like we read novels.
Yeah, well, you know, it's directly from the search engines. Their motivation isn't to use a patent to market something. It's to protect intellectual property that they want to protect. So they have a motivation not to create patents as red herrings, because they tend to be expensive red herrings. If you're going to mislead your competitors will create something that does the same thing using a different process, and most of them are really, really, really smart people, so it's not going to make that big of an effort to do it either.
Jim, you know, Jim, that if Bill had his way, all those patents would be made into movies too, right?
Let's pull in a couple of the audience questions here, because we got some good ones. Kevin was agreeing with me, saying, don't just give them a fish, teach them to fish. And this is the attitude we need to take when giving clients advice, is make sure that, you know, we are teaching them how to get that advice for themselves. It's something that Bill and I used to insist on in the day of Creator Site. We would never say, this is crap. We would show why we questioned this, what was wrong with it, so that everybody could see what we were doing with our logic and learn to do that for themselves. We did a very similar thing to a poor guy called Joshua Berg, who unfortunately posted something maybe wasn't quite ready for prime time. That brings me over to Jay Cricket Walker's post. This is a nice one, actually. When you attend an SEO or marketing conference, do you really learn in the main events, or does the real information get shared over a cold beer? Us lot, it's definitely the cold beer, and it's great that you bring that up, because this is always the kind of point we've tried to go for with ISOOSI. What we use as a model is that we try and emulate those meetings at the conferences where several of the speakers have gathered around after the event or in one of the bars and are just talking not to an audience but to each other, knowing there's an audience there, but just really sharing detailed stuff about it. No sales pitch, no pushiness, no handy cases, just really talking amongst ourselves. So yeah, this is something that you don't just get at conferences. Certainly it's one thing that businesses should consider, but also you can get much of this same effect by making sure, if you're looking for an SEO company and you don't have huge budgets, still pick some companies that you can have come in and have a meeting with you, so that you can talk face to face and see how you feel at that meeting. If they are throwing lots of terms you don't understand at you, that's not the company for you. If they don't take the time to explain it to you in your terms, this probably isn't the right one. But when you meet one that's talking at your level, the chances are they don't have to be the best company in the world. Just the fact that your relationship with them is good is probably going to get you a very long way.
Yeah, if somebody feels actually comfortable asking you questions when they see something. Bill, I was at a conference last week, and somebody brought up this and that and this. I'm not sure I quite understood it. Do you know what they were trying to get at? And just being that voice, being that there, being responsive to questions like that. That's the kind of relationship your client wants to have. That's the kind of relationship you want to have.
Mm-hmm. What about this one? I don't think we brought this one in, did we already? How about structuring a payment system for SEO vendors' performance? I know you've all probably got strong views on this. Right. For example, determining what objectives and goals are, and then ask the vendor how they're going to achieve them, then base payment structure upon the outcomes. If the vendor's successful, then more work would follow.
Well, this goes right back to an earlier point that Carmen made in the chat, where she was saying, you know, one of the good things about SEO is that we can try and put numbers on things. Well, that's great. If you believe in putting numbers, you know, this is the ROI we're going to deliver, put some targets in your actual campaign. So it's got some paid for performance results in there. You know, if you're going to make this a thing, put money on it. Show the client that you're committed to this. My approach was slightly different in the past. I guaranteed ROI because that gave me an awful lot of flexibility in how to attain that ROI. I could decrease their spend on bad results without decreasing their results. Let me quickly give an example. I went in-house for a year with a company back in 2000, and they were spending £15,000 per month on AdWords, which, you know, it wasn't AdWords at that time, it was GoTo's Overture's version. They were spending, you know, $15,000 on pay-per-click and a couple of other marketing channels per month. And I just went in, took a look at that account, saw a hell of a lot of savings that could be made, took that down to $3,000 per month that was getting exactly the same results in terms of sales, sign-ups and real visits. So, you know, I'd save them $12,000 a month. So if I was charging £12,000 in 1 month, I've made back the money, and I can say in 6 months I'll give you 6 times ROI. I've done that just by saving them money, not even building any new traffic. In this kind of way, you can do an awful lot to provide ROI. So if you want to give your clients a guaranteed ROI, that's great. That one I found was very flexible, and it gives you lots of ways to work. You can increase bottom line sales. You could increase, instead of the number of sales, the volume, the value of those sales. So whereas a customer used to buy an average of $100 worth of goods per buy, you know, if you've now got upsells in there and you've been able to put in slightly higher ticket price items and push sales towards those, so that now an average customer is spending 200 instead of 100, you know, that's exactly the same as doubling the sales without having to double the traffic. I think too often people just get really tied into everything is about more visits, more eyeballs. You know, I've got 2% conversion rate, so what I need to do is send another, you know, 200 times as many people to equal it out. No, it really doesn't, because as you get broader and broader on selecting traffic, it's going to get less and less interested, and the conversion rate's going to go down. Exactly. What you need to do is sell better to the ones you've got, or find a product that's better. But yeah, we're starting to get right into marketing there. That's probably going to have to wait for another show.
With paid search than SEO, I still feel, but I get what you're saying.
I kind of, the only concern I have about that kind of model, I like the idea of it, I've done it, but the problem is if you don't have authority to make changes, and if assuming that you're not depending upon someone within the organization to implement your recommendations. As long as you have control, you can make it happen and do it yourself so that you know it happens in a timely manner, then it's a safe model. Yeah. But if you've got to wait for somebody's second assistant to the vice something or other to implement your recommendation, or if somebody's going to veto it, then you have no control, then tying your payment to ROI is a very, very sketchy model.
Yeah.
Yeah, for our shop, that model wouldn't work. We tend to work as a consultant to corporations, so that model couldn't work for us. But inherently, there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah. What you can do in those cases is you build in things where if they delay a thing, you know, if they're supposed to do something and they don't, and the delay goes for X amount of time, you have a clause built in where they automatically have to pay you the bonus. It keeps them on their toes, and it's surprising. You can actually honestly sell that.
It can be very motivating, yeah.
Exactly. It tends to mean that they get results and waste less of their time. And driving through changes is sometimes very hard for some clients. So anything that helps them there can be a big one.
Another part of your idea, Ammon, that I really like is there's a negative enforcement for inaction. You know. It's really frustrating when you make these great recommendations to clients and you don't see them carried through because your reputation rests on the success of those clients. It never occurred to me that I could have a beating stick to force them to do something.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely what Carlos brought up there, Steve's point. Yeah, you can then get burned. The thing is here, don't make it that the work you're asking, that you need those bonuses to make a living. You don't. The whole point is that the basic work, just your retainer fee, should be enough to get by, but it's not the big bucks. But the
It's a
big bucks
bonus.
is the bonuses, right? And the bonuses are where it should be. So you might take, say, you know, look, we can give a discount of 20% on the overall fee, but the difference is there's a 50% bonus. It's going to cost you more to get it this way, but if you want it performance driven, here's how it works. If we don't deliver, you've saved 20%. If we do, it's cost you an extra 30%. Here's how it will work.
But but they're still making more than
You
they're
don't
losing.
get burnt on that.
Yeah.
So quickly, just to wrap up, so what's all your thoughts about these people who are actually moving away from using SEO in their titles or in their company names, or they got a publication, and there are, you know, there's a lot of people moving away from it. Do you think, you know, I brought it up in the green room before, are they being smart? You know, we all have to adapt. It's like Mike's comment on the event page about the blacksmiths. You know, in 10 years' time, there might not be search engines, or 15 years' time, there might not be search engines as we know it. Are people being smart to move in the direction of bringing it full circle back to marketing? And
I think often yes. You know, I knew that my job was about a lot more than SEO a long time ago. I've been an internet marketing consultant as long as pretty much anyone can remember. The thing, I do SEO. It's part of my job. I'm happy to be called an SEO because I still regard that as a term of respect from the kind of people that usually say it to me. I certainly have no problems with the thing, but I am not an SEO. I am a marketer because I am doing things outside of just SEO. If search engines were not an issue for a company, or if a company had decided not to be listed on search engines, I could still help them with their marketing.
You know, similarly to what Ammon said, my partner and I started our own company 4 years ago. We named it Digital Always Media on purpose because it didn't have the word search in it. Yet when I describe our services, there's a lot of mention of SEO, of website improvement. Whenever anyone asks me what I do for a living, I tell them I'm a webmaster. It just seems easiest. And most descriptive, too, because a lot of being a good SEO is being a really good technical webmaster.
Yeah.
I call myself an SEO. My website has SEO in the domain name. When I have conversations with people about providing SEO services, they've actually spent enough time on my website most of the time to realize that I look at a lot more things than just what the old traditional SEO is dead kind of textbook SEO that people write horrible blog posts about. Yeah.
I was just checking the availability. Sorry, Bill. I was just checking the availability of buythesea.com.
Hey, is mozbythesea.com available? That's how people usually get rid of SEO, isn't it? They just put Moz in their name. Doc, by the way, upskirtseo.com is available.
I don't know about that one.
Gotta be some link bait there somewhere.
Late in the afternoon, isn't it?
SEO is dead by the sea. Wait.
SEO by the graveyard.
Wait, let him wait for it to wash up on shore.
Uh-huh. Colonel Mustard with the lead pipe in the kitchen. Right.
Well, we've gone over a little bit, and we've probably not touched on half the stuff that we would have liked to, but I've got to wrap it up. Do you want to quickly I'll give a final thought, Ammon?
Yeah, folks watching, if you'd like to see more of this, we didn't get into the whole industry regulations and standards debate this time. We just didn't have time for it. If you'd like to see us do a show on that, let us know in the comments, and we'll get these fine gentlemen back.
Mm-hmm.
Jim?
I love what we do as search marketing professionals. I love what we do as extraordinary webmasters. I'm really proud of the industry we've built over the last 14 to 20 years. We've worked really hard. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. We've earned our place at the table, and we got to stop letting the charlatans and their chicanery, I love that word, Bill, and their chicanery from pushing us away from the table. The question is, how do we start the conversation on what we do about it? And I'm not sure we have that answer, but it's good to have the conversation.
Yeah, and it's things like this hangout, and that all go to help that. You know, there's a lot of small business owners watching this, our members, and you know, clients of the ISOOSI agency, and it's good for folks to hear these kind of conversations. Bill, final thought?
Sure. 5 or 6 years ago, I went to a meeting up in central Pennsylvania where my father was being honored with a Lifetime Achievement Award from an association he joined in the 60s involving a specific industry. One of his competitors got up and was the main speaker for the event, and he said, Bob is one of the toughest competitors I've ever run into, and he's done more for our industry than anyone else. Thank you, Bob. That's what I want to see.
Mm-hmm.
I do think we've actually got a lot of that. You know, Rand takes some criticism sometimes for some of the things he runs with, but all in all, I think this is one of the most generous industries I've ever seen, and obviously I consult and work with an awful lot of industries. You know, I deal with people all over the world in all kinds of fields, and I can't think of a more generous industry than the SEO one.
Well, we all came up together, right? You know, we're building it as we go along.
And we generally have this incredible compassion and feeling for other small businesses, and that desire to make our clients do well. I don't see that in ad agencies. I'm sure there are some, but a lot of them are more like the Mad Men types, who it's all about the dollars. And there's a lot of the House of Cards stuff as well, and you know, or House of Lies rather. You know, with those wonderful. Yeah. Oh, I love series like that, but there's a lot of areas where marketing is a bit like that. SEO, it's really not. It's really not.
I mean, we started off on the website and the SEO side, and we kind of added in as our company grew, and we took staff on. We took on PR folks, we took on graphic designers, we took on, you know, people skilled in media buying, and that kind of thought that you're just saying there, Ammon, it kind of went through to the other services. So I totally agree with you. Echo everything that you said and Jim said. Doc, before we sign out.
I guess the last message I'd like to offer to the folks out there that are website owners, small business owners, perhaps looking for some help, some guidance, and not really sure they understand exactly what they need. Just like any forum, just like a bulletin board, anybody can say anything on the internet. And they can promise anything, and they can do it in an email. So you have to take everything with a grain of salt. Don't accept anything. If Ammon says it, if I say it, if Rand Fishkin or Danny Sullivan says it, you know, you still don't just accept things blindly because you recognize someone's name. They may have more credibility, but all of us make mistakes. Okay? All of us can jump the gun on something and get a misinterpretation out there in front of others. And, you know, teach yourself to think for yourself. Get as much information as you can, and then make your best decision, and don't be afraid to ask. I don't think there's a one of us in this room here that doesn't give away free advice upon request now and then, okay? We're not going to be taken advantage of. We're not going to start giving you 20 hours a week. But if somebody comes up with a legitimate question, we answer them all the time. Don't be afraid to ask questions.
Well, by the way, we ask questions of each other all the time, too. I think that's worth noting.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I wouldn't have formed such a strong relationship with Ammon if it wasn't for that. I said when we got together with Ammon, it's like iron. What's the phrase? Iron sharpens iron. I've learned so much in this past year. I've been doing SEO for so long, but this last year with working with Ammon, just things have changed. So yeah, we do. But anyway, we got to sign out. We haven't got Eric here this week, and that's why we've ran a little bit over. Eric's our good timekeeper, and we're missing him this week. But thanks to the panel, thanks to Ammon and Bill, our regulars, ISOOSI chat. Thanks to Doc and Jim Hedger, and hopefully you'll join us next Tuesday, same time, 3 p.m. Eastern. And if you want to get in touch with us before that, it's www.isoosi.net, or you can visit our our web directory search system at isoosi.com. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Cheers, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you all.
Enjoyed it.